Hi everybody, and welcome to this special edition of Moons and Mythos. This is episode number 13, which seems very, very important. Not least of all because it's the number of the goddess, and we've been working with that energy a lot recently, and it's also quite witchy, and it's also right in the middle of a Venus retrograde. So hey, Kelley, what do you think about that?
I think this is just quite an exciting time. I mean, this Venus retrograde has colored so much of our experience and is definitely continuing. You know, we had the Venus star point when Venus and the sun are in alignment just a couple of days ago, and this new moon just picks up on it like taking that baton and moving it along. So let's yeah, we've got this is a really interesting moment. Yeah.
It is, right? So just as a preface to today's show, we are looking at the upcoming new moon at 23 degrees of Leo, and then a full blue moon at 7 degrees of Pisces. So the new moon will be on August the 16th and the full moon will be on August the 30th. But there's been a lot going on. We have, of course, just released the Venus Star Point video that we did a couple of days ago. So we're still very much in that energy, and we are now moving into the second half of the Venus retrograde. And it's been a bit wham bam, thank you ma'am at times. So where are we going to start? I guess the new moon that's upcoming, right?
Yes, and I do want to, say to people, if they haven't heard that Venus Star Point video, it will be more of really amplification of what we're talking about today. So that one, because we're really still in this this star point energy on a new moon, so that opens this cycle with this beautiful energy, heart energy, and it's not been a smooth sailing. It's like how deep can we go, and how finely how can we hold that emotional resonance and not drop down, because we are being challenged, with some really deep energies inside ourselves, and it's the mirror of life is going to a very deep place. So that with the Black Moon Lilith being right there.
Right. So yes, Black Moon Lilith has been a very key part of this process, and without having to go back over the video we just did, definitely recommend watching that, because we're still very much in that energy. And I think the finger of God, or the Yod, which is also an aspect of this Venus star point from a couple of days ago with Neptune and Pluto, is still very much in effect, and also that Chiron was aspecting the moon and Black Moon Lilith. So
yeah, I've got some new discovery about that. That's very exciting. And also about the Chiron extended moment. So that, and also the other extended moment is the ongoing Pluto square with the nodes of the moon. The nodes of the moon, being conjunct the, Eris, the spicy divine feminine warrior energy, and Haumea, the birthing goddess, who is renews from a very deep place in her womb to bring forth freshness. And in this case, she's back in Libra, more balance and relational harmony at best, with the help of Venus.
Right. So yes, I mean, just looping back onto what you said there about Pluto squaring the node. So it's been a bit of a shift, right? Because Pluto has been bouncing in and out of Capricorn and Aquarius, and the nodes were in the Scorpio Taurus axis and have now moved into the Aries Libra axis. So Pluto is still squaring the nodes, as it has been most of this year, really, to some extent or another. But the emphasis has changed now, because Pluto is in Capricorn and it's squaring the nodes in Aries and Taurus. So just quickly for our audience, Kelley, do you want to give a couple of minutes of how you see the difference of that change being reflected in the world from the Scorpio Taurus to the Aries Libra, and then when Pluto goes back into Aquarius, it's going to change emphasis again, and that's not that far away.
Yes, and so is Haumea. Haumea is going back into Scorpio as well. Right. So these cusps are very alive. And if you'll remember, last April 20th, we had a total solar eclipse at 29:58 or something like that. I mean, right on the cusp of Aries Taurus. And the Haumea is now spanning the cusp of Libra and Scorpio, which is a very special section of astronomy, because the claws of the scorpion are now the stars of Libra. And in older astrology, the claws of the scorpion were the stars are Zubin El Ganubi and Zubin Es Shamali. I love those names.
You know, those are your favorite words in the whole world.
Know.
Just give our audience another hit because we know that they love it too. What is it called?
Zubin El Shamali and Zubin El Ganubi. And they mean the north and south claws of the scorpion that used to be seen holding like a kind of a lamp, like the Aladdin's magic lamp type, or an incense burner that would purify the light, the flame, or the incense would purify anything going through that portal. So this cusp is that joining of the claws transforming into the scales. And so that cusp is very rich in imagery here. And I think it's worth thinking about that, the purification aspect of this.
Right. I mean, for me personally, this is a very hot point in my own chart. I have a lot of action around that 29 degrees of Libra and the first few degrees of Scorpio. So definitely been feeling that over the last 12 months and hoping soon that things are going to allow me to breathe a little bit more easily. But I definitely feel that compared to maybe 4 or 5 months ago, the intensity has changed and shifted. A lot of releasing going on in the collective, a lot going on in the planet. Still a lot of bridges to cross, I guess, for much of the collective. But there does seem to be an increasing amount of light at the end of the tunnel. And I think this Venus retrograde and this Venus star point on Sunday have given us all a new anchor point, a new place to start afresh from, which is really, really good. I think that that we need those periodically. And of course, Sunday was a portal day in the Mayan calendar. And now we have another portal day, which is the new moon. But it's also got some extra flavors to it. So let's get the chart up, Kelley, and have a look at what's going on.
Okay. Yeah, the Venus star point, you know, and this new moon, they're both two new beginnings, and they share some energy in a very profound way. So here's what I want. Okay, so can you see this?
Yeah, loud and clear, looking good.
So it's look at all of that, a lot of Leo there. Venus is retrograde. Now, you know, one of the big points of Venus retrograde, or one of the big themes she brings forward, is to attend to our relationship with ourselves. Because if we don't love ourselves, you know, there's no way we can love other people to our full capacity. So Venus retrograde is a lot about that. And she will be becoming visible in the morning sky very shortly. So there she is. And the new moon at 2317 Leo is still conjuncting the black moon. So the informing energy of this Venus retrograde has been the black moon, which is a deep, more secreted aspect of our heart and womb energy, you know, really deeply soul connected. So heart and soul has basically been the theme of this particular Venus retrograde. And here we see the two black moon positions. This is true and this is mean. It's because of the all the rapid alterations of interstellar influences on the moon and the variations in its orbit. Sometimes we get those super moons, and also the way the black moon, so connected to the moon's orbit around the Earth, has both a mean average motion and then one called the true motion that takes into account how much that moon energy orbit wobbles. And so it changes position and goes back and forth, retrograde and direct, quite a number of times. So it's in the same degree, and within hours of this new moon, about 4 hours later, there is a Venus flash, as we have come to call it, when the two black moon positions are exact. So shall we get into that now, Davyd?
Yeah, sure. And again, for those of our audience who maybe are new to this concept of the Black Moon Lilith Flash or Alignment Day that we refer to, I just want to point back to the wonderful video we did with the Artemises, which can be seen on the YouTube channel. And this is really, really exciting because it's almost like we've got a double whammy of portals 4 hours apart. We've got the new moon, which we can put an intention into. And then we've got a womb creation space alignment, which happens 4 hours later. So that seems incredibly potent and magical. And what we do with that, I guess, is up to us. But we just want to bring it to the awareness that this is very, very potent, I think is the word.
Well, you said womb creation point. And, that goes back to how Maya being so present, and with the South Node in Libra, she is the womb goddess. She is the birthing goddess, so that she is so present. And in Libra, which is ruled by Venus at this extraordinary moment, I think is really, accents, echoes, kind of this deep inner journey that we've been having that is evoking something deeper through our experience and through our embodiment than we're used to being called to. And so, it's been a little hard to keep on the high wavelength of Venus, but it's drawing out what we need to do that. It's drawing out a deeper place in ourselves that is being invited, this call to Venus and love. So all the challenges, because, some people think self-love is a selfish thing, and it's not. It's the law of the universe, that you are you and you must love you. You must be you. You must express the fullness of who you are right from that heart and that creative spark,
Yeah. And as we've been calling this over quantum plant healing, it's turning being self-centered into being centered in self, which is really, really important, because if you're not centered in yourself, then where are you exactly? And I think that, this understanding of being taking care of self first isn't necessarily being selfish, because if you're putting everybody else first, and as your wonderful Sabian symbol there, which we'll get into in a minute, indicates in some way, like you can be letting the vehicle, the spacesuit, the meat bag, as one of my old teachers used to call it, fall into disrepair, because you can be so busy putting your energy everywhere else, you're not looking here. And of course, given the various aspects of the last few years, health and wellness is a huge issue on the planet right now. The healthcare systems planetarily are failing for lots of reasons, and at a time when there are lots of people who also have situations going on with their body due to various things that have been offered to the population over the last years. So looking after oneself is very responsible, because you're not putting extra pressure on the healthcare services. And if you're just giving your healthcare away to everybody else, then well, maybe that's how we got into some of this mess in the first place, right? So I think this is a really, really important point, and I know that I bang this drum quite a bit because it is important. If we're not looking after ourselves, then it's difficult to look after anybody else, and certainly in the world of healing, that goes
you are you. So your primary responsibility is being the best you can be. And Aries is also a sign of whose a primary theme is self-centered, is centered in self and in your integrity, being really clear with yourself and who you are, which can foster better relationships too, if you're not trying to do the Libra thing of accommodating somebody else, and you get off balance. So this is, relating to the ongoing Pluto square the nodes, and how we're making these choices of being centered or way off balance. And, it can go to extremes sometimes. And so can the moods along the way of this highly emotional journey. But we don't want to be pulled into somebody else's drama. We don't want to be pulled into the collective drama. We want to go to that place that is creating, a kind of a new reality in a sense. So let's look at the Sabian symbol for 24 Leo, because we always round up. 23 plus is 24. Totally concentrated inner spiritual, totally concentrated upon inner spiritual attainment. A man is sitting in a state of complete neglect of his body. Now, this moon will not let us go there. This may be the challenge of the moon, because we've got planets in all of the earth signs on this moon. We have Pluto in Capricorn. We have Uranus and Jupiter in Taurus. They're, kind of getting closer to each other. And we have Mercury in its own sign of Virgo. and Mars in Virgo as well. So this is really about paying attention to your body and your health and your rapport with nature, time in nature. It may, especially with Virgo going retrograde in just a couple of days after this new moon, Mercury is going to spend extra time in Virgo saying, let's see if you can do anything to improve your health, any adjustments to your diet, go out in nature, take the time, because Mercury is in Virgo well into September, right?
So yeah, just to clarify, I think you said Virgo goes retro, but I think you meant Mercury goes retrograde, and that's on August the 23rd.
Mercury as the ruler of Virgo, where its finest skill set can be experienced, and this is like really about fine tuning, getting it to the best you can, and also a kind of listening to your body, because your body has a lot of organic intelligence. So
I mean, I think what we're starting to realize, or hopefully many of us are starting to realize, is this wonderful piece of, flesh and bone is really the most incredible technology that can do almost anything.
Yes, and calling it a meat suit is an insult, Davyd. No more meat suit.
I'm just quoting one of my teachers who said it very humorously as a way of getting us to disassociate too much from the body and understand that we're not just this physical matter. But once we have made that separation, we can come back to a different view of our body and view it as this incredible spacesuit that has an internal mechanism that's a nuclear reactor. It has the ability to create almost anything in the room space. And if we really get down with our meditation, it's also an access point to the rest of the universe. We can, through the state of emptiness, open a portal which allows us to access the cosmos. So this is the spaceship. I mean, we all want to have our own kind of UFO, sci-fi spaceships probably, but in the end, we already have one, and it's actually a pretty good one. But if we are like the man who's totally out there on his spiritual attainment and has forgot to feed himself for the last week, that spacesuit's going to start to break down, and so won't take off that well. And also, in order to do that kind of sort of skywalking or journeying, we need to have a lot of chi energy, because that uses a lot of psychic energy. And so, I mean, this is something I know from doing my clearings, that if I'm not in a good place of chi energy, that my psychic abilities drop off really, really quickly. So, doing qigong, doing tai chi, doing kundalini yoga, anything that's going to get the meridians fired up and get the energy flowing. And
yes, because we have energy bodies that are actually aspects of our physicality, just very subtle aspects.
Everything is always mirrored, and we should never forget that our physical body is really a reflection of our energy body, and our energy body is a reflection of our physical body, and that just keeps spiraling outwards. And in the fractal universe, that's why the most important thing any one of us can do as an act of evolution, revolution, rebellion, however you want to look at it, is be centered in self. It's the most important, most powerful act that you can do.
And fine-tune your instrument, fine-tune your temple, the temple of your body. And when we use the spiritual and the physical, which is a truth, then that's we are embodying the universe and able to radiate this new dimension of love that we're experiencing. But our body may need some help to release some negativity and old patterns that are getting in the way of really radiating the fine energy that this Venus is picking up on during its retrograde.
Wow. And so just to clarify again, Mercury goes retrograde at 21 degrees of Virgo, I believe, on August the 23rd, which will be then for the next, how long is it, 3-week period?
It's about 21 days that it's retrograde. It's retrograde part of the time, Venus is, and then Venus will turn, Mercury turns forward on the 16th of September. That's basically, right around the next new moon. So, and then Virgo, then Venus is forward by then as well. So it's in Virgo, its own sign, where it can be its finest, for quite a time here. And let's use it well. It could be working with your body, fine-tuning your body, but it can also mean, maybe we're looking back at things like what has been going on in the last while. Hi, Kitty. And,
so we're still in training with the cat. She's, I think, appeared in every video I've done.
She might want to roll here. I want a YouTuber whose cat is always in the videos.
That's where we're heading to with the cat training. Yeah, when you're talking about rolling, she likes to roll over the keyboard, unfortunately, which does cause some issue in the recording
That's
side of
true.
things. We're still doing the fine tuning. I'm learning to be a parent, which is part of my Venus.
Well, the Mercury retrograde could be a very good time for getting that training together. Practice makes perfect. It's a good Virgo statement. So so this Earth triangle and the groundedness and the full moon, we're going to see more Virgo. Mars will have moved on, but Mercury is still there. The sun is going in. So, and then Venus is going into Virgo. So we're on a bit of a Virgo track here. So really pay attention and appreciate your body.
Right. And as we're just looking at this chart, obviously we've talked about Pluto squaring the nose, but I see that Pluto is still squaring Haumea at the same time, but it's also squaring something else, which I don't recognize the symbol of immediately at 25
This is Eris.
Eris. Okay.
Yeah, Eris, that feisty sister of Mars who, likes to stir things up because things need to be stirred up. No complacency here. No complacency at all. But we still got to keep our balance through it all. She threw that apple into the feast, that said for the fairest, and all of the goddesses started, quibbling over it. There's a lot of quibbling going on now too. So, but don't you initiate it, don't you start it, just, kind of be as clear as you can. And that's it also with, at the beginning of this Venus retrograde, when it first went retrograde, Mercury was very close to it. So when we talked about it, we were saying it's a lot about the words you're using, and even in your mind, to really bring a higher quality of energy to the words that you're using, which have an impact on your experience. So we want to do self-talk that's very encouraging and loving. And, I've been going, oh, Kelley, you did that again, kind of thing, just kind of making sport with myself. And, I have a lot of conversations with myself.
Me too. I'm sure we're not the only ones. And, on that note, it is important, and we probably all done this at points, is to talk nicely to yourself. And, in the past, I had a habit, if I dropped something, I would chastise myself or various things. And I realized it's not really helping me. It's just me talking to me. And if I'm constantly on my own back about stuff, then that's not a great thing. So we can start to be more loving towards ourselves and more forgiving. And I see that Chiron also is a little bit aspected here with Eris. It's a little bit wide at 6 degrees, but anything you wish to say about how Eris and Chiron are working together in Aries?
Well, they're going to be getting closer and closer in the next year and two. So yes, and there's a lot to say about this Chiron, which is in a beautiful fire trine, right, to Venus right now, and also to the new moon. So Chiron went retrograde, as we see here, it's retrograde, the day after Venus went retrograde at 19 degrees plus. So it's been there for quite a while. When a planet's turning around, it slows down, and it's in the same degree and sometimes the same minute for quite a bit of time.
Right.
So Chiron has really been at 19, and it's going to be at 19 a while longer. I have that figured out for my newsletter. And then the thing is that Chiron goes out of 19 backwards, I think down to 15 Aries. So it's sort of like playing around with the nodes a bit. And then it comes back to 19 degrees in April of 2024. And on April 8th, there's a new moon and it's a total eclipse, and Chiron is conjunct. Let me fast forward because I've got that chart.
Yeah, I know you bought that chart. The audience has got a visual.
Oh, dear me. Can't seem to get there. Play. Maybe I need to play slideshow. So let's look at that new moon chart of April 2024, a total eclipse of the sun at 19, Chiron's at 1924, 1924. The very same minute. And
That feels
there's
like
something
holy
going
shit
on.
kind of a moment. What does that mean? That looks pretty big and epic.
And Eris is exactly, well, 3 minutes difference from Mercury, which is retrograde in Aries at that point. But and the node is so close. That is like, it's like a wow. I mean, we had a wow eclipse last April 20th, but this one is Chiron infused. So Chiron can be a real shift of consciousness. So we are preparing for it now because Chiron is at 19. And it's at 19 for this extended time and very much influencing this Venus retrograde. 3 times they are in an exact trine. So this is just, you know, a kind of, there's so many unusual factors to what's going on.
Right. Well, I mean, one of the things that's been very clear over the course of this year that understanding portals and deltas and loops is an important way of understanding your own journey, but also a way of understanding the collective journey. And it also gives us clues as to how things can unfold if we're conscious and centered in self. And before we move on from this new moon, I have a couple other points I just want to bring out there, Kelley, that have sort of been highlighted. So it looks like we have a nice aspect between Uranus and Pluto going on. Is there anything you'd like to say about that?
Yes, well, that's going to get stronger as Uranus turns forward, and Uranus is going retrograde in a few days as well. So this is all, it's up to 23, and that's where it's going to turn around, and it doesn't get back to that point until next year also. And in April, that same month that we're having that intense eclipse on the 8th, Jupiter and Uranus are going to conjunct. And they're going to be largely trine. Wait, let's look at this again. So here is the Uranus factor at 21, and it's direct by then. And it's really close to Jupiter. They're conjunct later that month. And by then, of course, Pluto is in Aquarius. So that's that this is now, that's then, this is now, you know. And so just being aware of this, and like, as you said, time loops, because Chiron has an altered time frame. They call it chirotic time, or kairos, which is magic time, which is cyclical time. And this is definitely an interesting cycle we're looking at, that we're going to, you know, kind of be clicking into further. You know, Venus is retrograde. It just clicked in with Chiron a few days ago, and then it's going to click in once again when it turns forward. So we've got some that, yes, that is a very profound influence, you know. So the Uranus squaring this new moon really closely, and has been squaring Venus also, the 3 times that happens with this Venus circle. And the Chiron influence, this is consciousness shifting in a very high level here, this whole time frame. And our bodies want in on it. So let's just not, you know, focus on the spiritual aspect of it. Let's bring it forward. And so let's, one more comment here. Neptune in Pisces is opposite Mars. So that Neptune can tend to want to do exactly this, sitting in meditation. No, we're needing our bodies this time. We're really lightening up our bodies in this physical upgrade and experience. So we really need to tend to that level for sure, and not let the emotional dynamic or drama get in the way of the direct line between our spirit, our soul, and our bodies.
Right, and just before we move on, could I just like to pick up on that point? So I think it's really important. Of course, everyone knows that plants are a big part of my world, they're a big part of your world too, and quantum plant healing looks at all of this stuff. But it's really, really important to acknowledge, and we've just been working with the heart space, that if the physical heart is also under pressure, there's a good chance that the energetic heart is also not in good shape, and vice versa. But we can apply this to the whole system. And so this is another moment just to remind everybody, detoxing is an essential part of the essential process. I've heard many people saying they're getting ascension symptoms, and I'm like, well, they could just be symptoms that you need to detox, which is part of the ascension process, particularly if you are getting hit by unhelpful frequencies, particularly from certain types of technology.
They're all over.
And the solar flares too, affect people in the bodily way. So I think it's really important just to again emphasize that detoxing the body of particularly graphene oxide and heavy metals is really, really essential. And then to ensure that the most important thing is that your internal waters are clear. We're learning more and more that that water is the key to memory, to containing information, whether it's in a crystalline form, whether it's in a fluid form. And of course, we are mostly water beings, actually. And so if our internal water, like the water in our taps here, or probably in most places in the world, we've been distilling our water, and to our horror, when we see what's left at the bottom, there is black gunk and there is metals and all kinds of stuff. We're like, oh my God, people are putting that into their system. And of course, if we're cleaning our teeth in that water, if we're showering in that water, also we're receiving it topically into the body. Now that's much more smaller traces, but some of this material is literally embedded in our landscape. So we can work at the energetic level. We can also work with plants like dandelion and horsetail and the artemisias to cleanse the system. And then once we cleanse the system, we want to make it a closed circuit, like the great aquifers of the world that help generate the rain. Because if it's a closed circuit system that's clean, then it's going to self-replicate, and then we don't have to be the guy whose body's in a state of neglect because he's forgot to drink clean water or whatever else he's been up to. So just wanted to emphasize that point, because I think it's really, really important to the progress of everybody on this journey.
And we have salt water. Salt vitalizes water, electrifies water, vitalizes water. And also, we can, that self-talk becomes really important in relation to the waters in our body, because water hears us. Water is, Veda Austin has been doing this wonderful work with photographing the responsiveness of water to words, to vibration. She did pretty recently a wonderful video with Pam Gregory. And so that information is so interesting and so important for us. We already know about the work of Dr. Emoto, who photographed the molecular structure of water in response to negativity and responsive to positive wording. And so this again is like part of this Venus retrograde of really improving and bringing more harmony and love into how we relate to ourselves and our bodies and all of that. So so that's a really important thing.
Cool. So moving on from that, I know that we have another interesting little slide you've put together here. So here we go. The new moon Lilith flash, or the alignment or portal moment. And we have a few more, which I'm sure we'll share in a minute. Let's have a look at this one first.
Well, so we're taking the average motion of the black moon in relation to the wobbling, of the black moon, going backwards and forwards. And there are these moments when they align, and they don't last very long. And I tell you, it was a fussy job to find the exact moment here. So as you see, it's 9:50 a.m. My time, Eastern Daylight Time right now. And this is 24 Leo 38, that exact Lilith flashpoint. And it only lasts a couple of minutes. So but I found this interesting because it's like the same day. I mean, it's really within hours of the new moon. And we saw how close they were even on the new moon, just minutes away. So here that is. And it brings us into this moment where we have the sun at 23, that's 24 Sabian. We have the Lilith flash, both together, bringing something. It's like a clear beam of crystalline energy, just woof, kind of comes through.
It's an alignment, I think, with above and below in ourselves, and it's only
Yeah,
for a
and
few
this
seconds.
is,
That's what we call
really quick, really quick. So, so it's 24 plus, that's 25, Leo. We get an extended storyline. We get 25, Leo is, and this is the Lilith flashpoint image, a large camel crossing a vast and forbidding desert. Whoa. Now, Venus goes retrograde for 40 days and 40 nights, kind of like Jesus in the desert kind of thing. So this could be, part of that story that, we're out there, and where do we find the water? Where do we, how do we transit, that desert, that being out there, like surrendered or to this Venus energy. In fact, it's a black moon, Venus, soul and heart.
It's like
we have to give up our ego. Now, weren't you talking before we started recording? You were saying something really profound about ego stuff.
So yeah, I'm just gonna, because I think this is really amazing. My first initial thought is it's a large camel, so the camel is geared up with its own resources, its own internal water supply to cross the vast and forbidding desert, which is another analogy for the great pilgrimage, a vision quest. But as we go on the journey inwards, and we start to be able to remove the things that were never us, that somehow we've absorbed or that we've taken on, we start to realize they've become a part of the ego image or the ego mask. And now the ego gets a bad name. And of course, we've said many times before, the ego is necessary to navigate the 3D world. But what happens is, on this vast and forbidding journey across the desert, the ego thinks it's the one in charge. And so it starts to take on many, many faces according to different situations, sometimes to fit in, sometimes for self-protection. And so there is definitely a need for that at certain points. But at some point, we have to start looking at the ego and seeing where it's trying to take control, or where it doesn't have a sense of trust. And once we really look at that, it can be a little bit disconcerting to see those fingerprints scattered liberally all over your life. Almost sometimes in every word that you're saying, I mean, I'm talking from experiences, like to see the ego coming out of your mouth and go, oh my God, I never perceived it that way before. So then we start to have the compulsion to let go of that aspect of ourselves and say, well, if I'm not my ego in that sort of considered sense, then who am I? And so then the journey becomes back to, to who am I and what am I doing here? But in letting go of the victimhood or the faces or the ego, we actually let go of quite a large percentage of ourselves, which leaves this big open space, which, if we're not careful, can be filled by more junk and gunk and rubbish. Or if we're smart, we start to expand into that space, kind of Jupiterian style, and we start to allow our higher self, our multidimensional self, to become much more present, because we've cleared out the rubbish from the system. We don't have the heavy metals, the toxins, the absorbed childhood experiences or social experiences. And so we can let all of that go, because it's not really us. And I think
it's
that may
chemically induced a lot of times too, the chemicals, right, and our hormones and all of that based on our state of being.
Right. And of course, the good thing about a desert is that it's fairly, hopefully, uncontaminated. There's not much there. So maybe we have to sort of go back to a desert state to begin with and say, okay, how am I going to repopulate my desert, my inner self, with flowers and plants and beautiful things?
Beautiful things, surrounded by beauty. This is, Venus is the beauty path. And right, often that ego comes out in dynamics with other people. If we aren't comfortable with ourselves, we're going to play off their energy in a way that can get us outside ourselves. And it's like, oh, that person is making me act this way. And it's like, no, you're not staying centered in yourself to respond in an authentic way. And some relationships do that more than others. And it's also that also brings up the whole theme of Libra, which is accommodating the other person, like automatic response in the way you think they want to hear you or for you to be, and then there's the era saying, nope, got to break this paradigm. This isn't going to work for, an ongoing relationship. And we are making choices based on how we are witnessing, with the help of Uranus, the higher mind planet, our behavior and our activity in relation to the social context we're in. And so being in the desert, it's like, okay, I got to come back to myself. I need some time alone just to like get back to myself.
Yeah, because when we're in the desert, metaphorically or literally, there is nothing else to focus on. There's the heat and there's the sand, and hopefully there's some water somewhere along the way, or a nice oasis to park up for a bit and maybe just take a breather. But otherwise, the focus is on this. There's nothing else to distract us.
And the beautiful night sky filled with stars.
Right, that's also true, of course. And I think that this is just a really beautiful way of expressing the importance of taking time to sit inwards, but not to the point of neglect, but also to bring everything back into balance. It's important to have the reflection time.
Yeah.
It's also important to have the doing time, to be active, to go and exercise, to go for a nature walk, to take a nice bike ride, maybe go and kick a football around, whatever is your thing, that you like to do. But taking care of the body as the ark, as the sacred temple, will actually facilitate more and more higher mind experiences, because both activities need energy. To navigate the 3D world and to navigate the 4D and the other dimensional worlds as well requires chi energy. So it's a job. We have to be our own mechanics, our own repair people, and we have to take that responsibility on for ourselves, because we should be becoming sovereign. And if we're saying, hey, I don't really want to take care of myself, I don't want to take care of my body, you take care of it, well, then we can see again what's happened over the last few years when we give that responsibility to other people who maybe don't know any better than us, or maybe have slightly inverted ideas about how humanity should be.
And we give in because we think they know better. They don't know our body the way we know it, if we're paying any attention. Right. So anyway, and look at this, the moon. This is not long after the new moon. We're still in the new moon territory where there's not a crescent moon yet. The moon and the sun are really close together at 26, Leo Sabian. So the story is, next chapter of the story is, after a heavy storm, a rainbow appears. A lot of places have been getting heavy storms. Not to mention, but I think that's a nice ending to the sequence of the, spirituality, of feeling like we're in a desert and we have to rely on our own resources and our own hearts and creativity. And then, refreshing storm. And so there we go. So that's the Lilith flashpoint. Say what?
I say also bringing water to the desert. If we planted some seeds and we've got our irrigation channels dug, and we've had a little bit of foresight, maybe from our time alone, like, I've already planted my seeds, waiting for the rain to come. I've done my sojourn in the desert, and now I'm ready. And the rainbow, as we know from our rainbow bridge journeys, is a part of the transition from the 3D state of being to a more 5D, 6 and 7D state of being. So again, all of this is very, very symbolic for the point on the journey that we're at, and I think it's beautiful. And of course, a heavy storm can come in many ways. It can be literal with rain, as many people are experiencing, or it can be an emotional, spiritual storm. And I feel again that the collective is very much either in or entering into that collective storm, particularly around health and being. So the rainbow is always a great hope.
It can be a spell of crying. That's like a storm. That's releasing, expressing emotions that need to get out there. So anyway, so that's the Lilith flashpoint on this new moon. And
so just before we move on, Kelley, I just want to clarify for audience. So the Black Moon Lilith flashpoint is at 9:50 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time, which would be for me 7:50 here, I think. And that's the moment when the two aspects of the Black Moon align. And when exactly is the moment of the new moon? Is it 4 hours beforehand?
5:38 a.m. Eastern.
So 3:38. Okay, I just wanted to get that down, just because some of us, like me, want to be precise, because it can make a difference when we're working with these energies. And again, just want to point everybody to the benefit of working with new moon and full moon. This is a chance to plant those seeds, so when the rain comes in 2 weeks' time, they can come to a full moon illumination. So if we're smart and clever, we really can work very powerfully to manifest in just 2 weeks. And these Black Moon Lilith days are also manifestation womb creation points. And once we get into the astrology cleverly, we can find that there are many gateways and portals with which to send and receive. It's a bit like a universal emailing system once we get our heads around it. So Beautiful. And yeah, so what's going to happen 2 weeks from the full moon, from the new moon? Rather?
Here's
What
the
can we
blue,
expect
here's
to
the
see?
full blue moon, second one in August. For many, it's late at night on the Eastern time. So for many people, it's going to be on the 31st, still in August. And here is a more Saturn on the moon in Pisces. This is the big aspect for this moon. Saturn is there. Now, I don't know if that's going to limit water, or it could flood or drought, you know, but it's this flow of energy, and Saturn doesn't leave guesswork. Saturn is a manifester. Here's what's happening. Reality check. I know reality is a little fluid lately, but this is like, okay, you know, how are you, you know, paddling your boat? Are you going with the water? Are you trying to go against it, you know, for one thing? But also, here's the increasing Virgo signature that we're moving into. So there's the sun in Virgo opposite the moon. So we've got this, you know, heaven and earth thing. We've got the spirituality of Saturn, and there again, our body is calling us to, you know, are you going to stay on earth or not? Now, one of the things, a couple of things I like about this is the true black moon is just on that edge into Virgo, and really very much influencing the sun energy that is being reflected by the moon and Saturn. Saturn and the black moon can have a really good relationship because they're both pretty strict in their own way. They both have a kind of requirements that need to be met, you know, in terms of being authentic, and in terms of, like, you know, dealing with stuff. Take responsibility. Again, you can't give that to somebody else to take care of you. Otherwise, you can get in danger. Now, the other thing is we've got this Kuiper Belt object, Orcus, right there as well. And we've talked about Orcus quite a bit as the oath maker and the oath breaker, and the agreements, you know, that we've made, or, you know, not made. So we have to really, this is like sorting and sifting out. Here's a big wave coming in. It's like the way whales feed. They have some kind of membranes in their mouths that sort out what that doesn't want, and to let in what is good, nourishing food. It's kind of like the intestinal system. It's like, nope, we don't need that. Let's flush that out. So there's a kind of fine tuning here, but also in terms of our physicality, what have we let in that we don't even know we've let in? You know, and this gets more into the energetic level too, and levels of pollution, you know, various levels or sorts. And so this is fine tuning. This is what agreements have you made with your body or in relation to your body that need to be broken.
Yeah, I mean, the whole Orcus piece, I think, is really, really interesting. And, you know, I mean, it's, for me, it's absolutely bang on my descendant. So I'm paying super attention to this one, and have been for a while, because it's been hovering around that. But also understanding that in this moment of the great karmic cycles coming to an end of the previous, as the Aztecs would say, the fifth sun, that we've just completed, and entering into the time of the sixth sun. And it's just something that's been said before, both by myself and quite a few other people, is that we have to conclude the business of the old paradigm, whatever that is. We have to wrap up all of the businesses, both logistically in the 3D, but also spiritually and emotionally, because if we haven't, then we're not sovereign. We still have these cords of connection. And we also need to see if there are oaths that we've broken that we should have maintained, because, you know, that's part of the reason we're here, is to finish off these karmic cycles and to also reclaim those lost bits of ourselves. You know, we were just talking about what happens when this kind of space is created because we've absorbed all this other stuff. Well, what happened to the rest of the real us? Where has it gone? Somewhere, maybe it got fragmented or scattered into the universe. So we can actively start to call back and say, hey, this is the time where my soul contract with myself is to become whole and holistic again, and to be a fully embodied multidimensional being, which is the whole reason we're here.
And that
so I think
goes back to the meaning of Chiron, the holistic integrity of our being. And we notice here also that Mercury retrograde in its own sign, where it has a really good skill set, is circling Orcus to say this is a good time to kind of figure out, what agreements are helpful, what are not, where they're coming from, and work with it.
Right. So just on that note, so Mercury is going to retro back over Orcus during those 3 weeks, and it's going to go
back to 8 degrees.
8 degrees.
Yeah. When it turns forward on the 14th, 15th of September, it's back at 8. So
Right.
Yeah, it's circling that, and it goes back basically to where the sun is now. So this is, this is rethinking. This is sorting things out. It's like sifting and sorting. Sometimes, with this Mercury retrograde in Virgo, it's sort of like if you want to make an angel cake, you have to have the finest flour. So there's the angel over here in Pisces.
Right. So again, just to emphasize that point, Mercury's going to retro back over Orcus, which is a chance to review those contracts, the ones that are in our awareness or maybe should be in our awareness. And then it's going to go forwards back over Orcus. And so maybe that's the chance to rewrite those contracts or to rip them up and say that contract's finished, it no longer applies. And, I just did a podcast with my wonderful herbal brother and teacher, Pete Jackson Main, and the plant that we were talking about was holy basil, Tulsi, which I know that you know well. And this is the goddess. This is a goddess plant who is the keeper of the Book of Souls. And so if you want to find out about soul contracts, I highly recommend taking a cup of Tulsi tea and going into a meditation space and allowing her to talk to you as the goddess or an aspect of the goddess Lakshmi to communicate with you. Well, okay, this contract or this one, maybe some of them might seem a little traumatic. Maybe there are some relationships or partnerships that maybe need to be ended in a current form, maybe ended completely, or maybe ended in this form and then re-signed in a dotted line in a new way. Because as we move forward, we're entering into a period of like contract law, which is not a new idea. It's something that many of us have known before, but contract law is really
law.
natural law, exactly, not the maritime law that has been inflicted on us and we've all been forced to believe over the last 500 years, which is another interesting kind of piece of karmic history too, because the 500-year delta, we've just been learning this recently, that the fall of Tenochtitlan, which is really what is the current CDMX, happened just over 500 years ago. In fact, the Venus star point was the 502-year anniversary of the fall. And so, that's to do with the incoming colonization of the Spanish and all of that imperialism, which has been really, really something present on our planet strongly for the last 500 years, and is not anything to do with sovereignty, but is to do with oppression and suppression. So I think that we can see that these are all getting freed up on some kind of collective contract level.
Yeah, look at what Africa is going through. They're really getting rid of that colonial, oversight. So
overlay, yeah, exactly. So I just want to make that point because it is important. As we reform those contracts, we can come at it from a more Aries position, a more sovereign position, understanding the South Node in Libra as the we of the past, but coming to a me of the future, which still acknowledges the we of the past, but it's also how am I going to operate in the collective as a sovereign being? And part of that is, how do I make agreements with people? Do I make them from a fair and balanced place? Or do I make them because I'm obligated to? I feel under pressure, or I've been guilt tripped. None of which is anything to do with sovereignty or New Earth. And I just think this is really, really cool because it gives us the opportunity to reimagine our relationships with each and every being in our life, and maybe
renegotiate. Renegotiate our relationship. I used to think that was so business when my sister would talk about negotiating with her partner, and it's like, that's an aspect of it. Yeah, it's. I mean, we're dealing with another person, another being is like, okay, who are you and who am I, and how do we make this work? How does this work without compromising a level of integrity that would undermine not only each person but the relationship itself?
And also, just on that note, like, how is the deal struck? Is the deal struck with the intent to get more out of the deal than you're meant to? In which case that can lead to mistrust and betrayal. Or do we come into it saying, hey, I want to make sure that both myself and the other person in agreement have a balanced deal that means that the equal and opposite aspect of it is recognized, and also to make sure that the container or the parameters of the contract are clearly defined, because what is applicable for one contract
Yes.
with one person, maybe you enter into another contract with the same person for something else, but the details are different. So not to get the lines too blurred. It's like, this is one situation,
Right.
this is another, this is a different person. How am I making my contracts, my new contracts, in a new way? And are they fair and balanced? Because if they're not, they're going to blow up at some point, right?
Oh, that is so speaking to the Pluto square, the South Node in Libra, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. So this is a big time of endings and beginnings. You know, this what is the phrase is, if it's not fine, it's not over, or something. I never quite remember the word. It'll be all right in the end, and if it's not all right, it's not the end. That's it. It's something like that. And I kind of think that this is the moment we're in. It's like it's the ending of an epoch, and it looks bad if we watch certain channels, but actually when we tune into ourselves and I look around, it's like, no, the sun's shining, it's a beautiful day, the grass is green, the hummingbirds are flying around, I had a nice breakfast, and actually everything seems okay. So why am I going to go looking for trouble, right?
Yes, and we can't take responsibility for the whole world. We can't carry all of that, sorrow and, on our shoulders. We can do what we can do where we are and with whom we are, and send out love of life, and that is what's helpful. Virgo and Pisces are both signs of service. Virgo in a more practical way, Pisces in a more prayerful way.
Yeah. So, I mean, when we're looking at this as the full moon, like we just said, is sort of the culmination or illumination point potentially of the new moon, the black moon, Lilith flash, what do we see emerging here, Kelley? What's the picture? What can we put our intentions towards so that we can really utilize the energies of these two moons, the new moon and the full moon, to the maximum potential for us as individuals? What's coming out of this sort of picture for you?
Well, Venus is retrograde through this all. So there's still this coming home to your heart. And then the Mercury retrograde says, use the best words. Don't say anything, that you don't really mean, that is not coming from your heart. So there's that, how do you bring that heart energy inside out, without the ego, without the old ways. And as Pluto's saying, without the old agendas, what are your motivations? Like you were just talking about with a relationship, what is this based on? And is it based on love, or is it based on, fear has a lot of expressions, from jealousy and anger and, all kinds of stuff that we don't want in these negotiations, in our relationships. And that's our work. We're bringing, love heals everything.
Right. Absolutely beautiful. I love it. I've made quite a few notes there. It's almost like we're being asked, what are we bringing to the table for our new earth contracts that we're about to sign? Am I bringing a load of garbage? Am I bringing a load of fear? Am I bringing a load of conditional requirements? Or am I coming with an open heart saying, hey, I'm here with an open heart and I'm ready to receive whatever the universe is about to offer, including
That's
new
beautiful.
contracts and relationships with people, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a great place to be in. And if we can come to the negotiation table in this sort of analogy, if we can come without any clutter or baggage, we can sit there and say, hey, you know what, this is a great contract I want to sign right now. Or this is like, I think this one needs a bit of work. I'm not really feeling it quite.
Right. Edit. There's that Mercury retrograde. It's like, okay, this part isn't going to work for me, right. And I would, and there's that Saturn saying, don't just sign anything, right. Don't just be open to everything. This is like, make sure it's going to work for you.
Right, and maybe just to give an analogy of that could unfold in the collective picture, we could be looking very soon on the financial stage with the quantum financial system coming online. It's very much in the ethers, literally, the QFS. Or we could be looking at the CBDC, the central banking digitalized currencies, which seem like the same thing, but probably aren't. And so are we going to fall back into the fear mechanism? Oh, the financial system's collapsing, I'm going to take the first thing on offer because it's what the bank's offering me. Or do I say, I don't think I want to go into that deal again. I'm going to take a step back and see what else is on offer, because I think there might be something more appropriate for me. So I'm just using that one because it's in the ethers at the moment. A lot of people talking about that, me and you included recently. And, there'll probably be many other offers that are made by the crumbling old paradigm that seem on the surface to be a good offer. But really, when we smell them a little bit closer, like, no, it smells like the same old crap from before. I think I'm going to step away from it.
We can't react out of fear or lack, or, and that could be the test with this moon, conjunct the Saturn. It's like, don't just drink any old water.
Why am I accepting to drink dirty water? I know it's not good for me and I'm still doing it anyway. That should be a really good point of meditation. Why do I keep putting stuff into me that I know is bad? Why am I doing it? Because I can't be bothered to make another choice, or because I feel there isn't another choice?
This is habits and ego reactions based on fear.
Right.
And here's the Aries. Where's Aries? Over here. This is the leading edge. Do something different, explore a new path. The old way isn't working. We can't go back. Let's move forward and do it with that in the now, that Chiron alignment of spirit, mental, emotional, and physical. Every step we're taking across the bridge counts,
And I think this is where coming back to being centered in self is really important, because if we're centered in self, we can take the time to breathe into what we're going to do next, rather than react from, I've got to do this because I'm absolutely crapping myself, excuse my friend, about what's coming down the road. Whereas if we have that more, I think I'm okay. I think I'm going to be all right, because I trust that my higher self has given me the perfect blueprint for me to live the life I've always wanted. And I love this phrase that we've used before, but I think it's going to be a new hashtag, a user-friendly world. The world is set up to be user-friendly,
we're going to set it up. We're going to help set it up. So,
right. Or maybe we're just able to receive it. I think it's already set up, but because of the overlays that we've somehow unconsciously, consciously accepted, we can now say, I don't accept that overlay, that old paradigm, the matrix, all of those manipulative tactics that have kept us in a certain place, and say, I no longer accept that, because I'm a sovereign being. And in my sovereign world, that's not something that I want. And that's my God-given choice. And right?
Venus says, lead with joy. I've been working on enjoying everything I'm doing.
And lead with beauty, and allow the beauty to fill your life. Because once you let the goddess into your heart, and this is something else, the goddess has been so absent from our world over the last couple of millennia. Now her energy is really palpably returning very forcefully, very quickly. That space where she left from us, some of us, maybe all of us, who knows, that space can now be filled with beauty and love, and the energy of the heart and the energy of the goddess, which is really, I think, in many ways,
to be feeling her support and her radiance and her love and her grace and her, that's letting ourselves feel that and receive that, because we're not so used to it.
Right. And of course, within that energy is the energy of fun, the energy of creativity, and the energy of playfulness. And, if we invite that in, then we can actually surprise ourselves by what our higher self was already designed for us. We are the most incredibly creative beings, but we've been so blocked and disjointed and misaligned that we can't really feel into that in many cases. And I think that this is part of my new moon prayer, is to be fully open to receive whatever it is that the higher forces and the goddess have in their hearts for me, and have in my heart for myself. And then, once that's centered and anchored in ourselves, then we can just shine that energy without really having to do anything. That's the beauty of it. Less is more. When we're in that space, we don't have to push and project and try and grab. We're just being. And that sense of just being literally radiates out in that fractal spiral to everything else in our life. And imagine if we all did that. Wow. We'd be living in a user-friendly world tomorrow, I think, which I think is a really beautiful prayer for this new moon. It's certainly going to be mine. But what's your new moon prayer, Kelley? I'm going to put you on the spot now. Where is your heart leading you to on this new moon?
You're putting me on the spot.
Just feel into your heart, lovely. It's going to be there somewhere. I know it is.
Well, that, like I said, if I'm not enjoying something, if stress starts building up, it's like, okay, hold on a minute. And am I doing too much? Because this is like, part of this is the Virgo is setting your priorities. What's the most important thing? When I have too much going, I get stressed out and feel like I don't have enough time. And then I get reactive. And so it's like, just going with the flow and doing what I feel to do in the moment, even if I feel like I should be, it's like, let the flow of the joy guide you forward. And then things can happen really fast. Like, oh, I didn't think I was ready for this, but hey, I'm doing it and it's going fine, and get rid of that perfectionism and that self-critical side, which is Virgo too. Let that go, forgive yourself for not being perfect, go with the flow. And that's part of the big lesson here too, I think.
Well, there we go. Even though I put you on the spot, the heart opened and spoke, and what you said totally resonates. And I think it's perfect, right? Because, we shouldn't be putting pressure on ourselves. And the moment we do feel that, I'm not enjoying this, that's the moment to say, I need to take a little time out here and assess what's going on. I make a couple of adjustments. I don't have to throw the bathwater out with the plastic duck or whatever. But, I can make a couple of adjustments and say, okay, maybe I need to move forward in a slightly different way, or maybe I just need to stop doing that. And I think that's
I needed a nap yesterday so bad. I was like, okay, I'm doing it, and just a little refresher that way. I'll just let your body relax,
right,
and come back to it in a, with a different feel. So,
and that again loops back to that original Sabian symbol, like, are we taking care of the temple, the vehicle, the spacesuit? And, because we've had so many solar flares and energetic impulses, you're not the only person that said they had to take a big nap yesterday. And actually, I slept longer than normal last night as well. So, we have to observe that our bodies are absorbing a lot of the energetic impulses that are coming to the planet and the ones that are being projected at us unhelpfully. And our body is doing the best to process all of that so that our minds can be free to do the other things. So again, I think being in a place of gratitude to the body and all that it does for us as our vehicles is also something wonderful. And it's like that reaffirming into the waters, wow, you're a beautiful piece of technology. I love you. I want you to work as best as you can, because then the whole show is going to get even better, right? And I think that's also really important. So
our bodies are a priority at the moment.
They are, exactly. So as we wind to the end of today's Moons and Mythos, do you have any other slides to share, Kelley, or was that it for today?
Well, the last one I had was that April amazing moment. And, so we were looking, there's the Chiron still at 19 Aries, So it is for quite a bit. And so, here it is again, next year. So this is going to be definitely a date to put on your calendar, this date. And that whole month of April is like, wow. And there's Haumea back in Scorpio, Pluto's in Aquarius. Things are different by then, and we may be like surprised how different they are all of a sudden, kind of thing. Yeah.
Right, and just as a sort of final thought, maybe let's take the slide down, Kelley, and we'll just wrap up today's show. I mean, it's important to stay present, and for sure it's also interesting to listen to other people's opinions, astrologers, channelers, etc., and somehow to filter the information to what makes sense for us, to practice discernment, because we are going, I feel, to enter into a period where the illusion of the big story is going to get very, very confusing, and there's going to be like a point where
it's already confusing.
It is already confusing, but I think that it's going to get a lot more confusing, particularly for those of us who've been following what's going on. It's like, I'm already going, you know what, man, this is just a complete facade, and I'm not sure I believe any of you anymore. And I think that's also important, that as we transition out of one paradigm, that we do not fall into the mistake of the past and say, I'm going to accept this paradigm because it seems better than the one we just got rid of, which is a very much part of the old way of doing things.
We can't go back. We cannot go back.
We cannot go back. And we should not accept somebody else's vision of the future that is not in alignment with our own, because we don't have to. And if we're being offered a vision of the future that is not something that we want, then we should say, I don't want that. If we
that's
say
what
that
I've been saying, that's not my world. Somebody comes along, it's like, that's not my world,
Right, exactly. And I think that that's also important, because we're going to come to a place where we might have to try and work out, who do we believe? What do we trust? And if we can't trust ourselves to make that as the body medicine decision with our higher self impulse through the organ of the heart, then we might find that we're just skipping from one old paradigm into another version of the old paradigm, which I don't think is really what any of our audience will
probably. Better to go in exile in the desert.
Right, at least nobody's going to bother you out there, and you might find some really happy Bedouins who've got some really amazing goat stew or something that they've made, and you're going to bring life back to a more simple place and enjoy just having a glass of water and some really simple, maybe tribal food or something that doesn't have all the bells and whistles and the glamour of 5-star hotels and holidays and but somehow feels more real because it's made with art, it's made with love, and it's made from a place of necessity rather than being made from a place of superficiality, maybe. So lots on, I think. And this has been another really amazing episode. I love the fact that it's number 13, imbued with the energy of Venus and the goddess, and it leads to another 13 episodes around the sun. Kelley, do you have any final thoughts for today before we finish?
No, I just think, you know, the goddess is, you know, she's it's her show. It's her show at the moment, you know, and even when she's throwing a weird curveball at us, it's for a reason.
Right, and that's where being centered in self and understanding that everything dandelion style, and again, just going to reiterate, if you're having trouble understanding what's going on, just work with dandelion for a little bit, because he's going to bring you very much into the present moment and say, hey, just breathe into every moment, and you might be surprised at how much magic there is at your fingertips, literally at any given moment. And the more that we want to put our attention to that, rather than the attention of disasters in the future or what may or may not be happening on the news and may or may not even be real. There's many examples of that going on right now. And so
it's a journey to the underworld. It's just not all sugar candy, but we can still be grateful for the profundity of this passage and where it's leading us to that rainbow.
Right. And that journey through the desert doesn't have to be something tortuous and hot. It can actually have a deep meaning to it. And as we've just discovered on the quest to the quantum heart, taking a pilgrimage in life to do something for yourself, to ascend to the top of the mountain, to meet the higher energies, to meet the goddess. It's a really profound experience.
Away all the frills, you know.
Yes. Stepping out on the path, not even knowing where you're going to stay from one day to the next, meeting people along the way. That is the true essence of a pilgrimage, right? And, you know, if we give ourselves the option to do that for a few days, for a couple of weeks, for a month, whatever we want, for 40 days even, you know, like the Venus retrograde, then we might be surprised at how the universe talks to us if we just enter into that space with an open heart and an open mind.
Open heart and mind,
beautiful.
Good.
So thank you again, Kelley, for another amazing show. Really enjoyed this one as always. Please do check out Kelley's website, which is
HeliaStar.com, HELIA star.com.
And without giving too much away, me and Kelley are preparing something with Black Moon Lilith, which we'll be sharing very soon, and will be, I think, appearing in September, right, Kelley? But we're going to keep that one under wraps for just a little bit longer. And what else we've got coming up? We also have just completed the quest of the quantum heart at QPH, so please do check that out. It's still very much a journey that you can take. With this energy of Venus, we still have another almost 3 weeks of this energy. 2 weeks of this energy, and this is a great time to enter into that heart space with.
Well, she's going to be visible in the morning sky soon, which is about taking initiative, and then, you know, she turns forward on September 4th, and finally goes out of Leo right around end of the first week in October.
Beautiful. And of course,
carry her with you.
If you've never worked with dandelion before, please do check out the dandelion immersion at quantumplانthealing.com, because that wonderful being, I really feel, is the architect of the new way of being. And of course, there are many beautiful plants to work with, including sacred basil and many other plants too. So please do check those out. And me and Kelley will be back in a month's time for another episode of Moons and Mythos. And enjoy the energy, enjoy the flow, and enter it all with an open heart. Take it easy, everybody. We'll see you again very soon. Ciao for now.